Welcome back to Two C's with a pod. It's your boys coming here to solve all the world's ills and problems. So I think you saw this a few days ago. Maybe it was today. I don't know. They all run together anymore, Matt.
Yeah, no, I think it was a couple days. Yeah.
Did you see the Philadelphia Eagles announce they will not have fans in attendance this year?
I didn't. Is that brand new?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So the Eagles will not have fans in attendance. None of the Philadelphia sports teams will have fans.
I think that is inevitably what it will come down to anyway. I think the Ravens, it's interesting how, media corporations or different things kind of work. It's kind of a sliding scale as it goes. I remember the Chiefs said, well, we're not sure.
Hold on, please. Metros. Thank you.
Yes, I did. Kansas City football team, the Metros, of course.
The Metros.
They said that they were going to, where they weren't sure how many fans they were going to have. Definitely season ticket holders wouldn't have, their season tickets. Then Baltimore says, well, we're not having no more than 14,000. Then now you're hearing Philadelphia say, well, we're not having any fans at all. I think you'd hear a little bit of that in California with their teams as well. I think that's where it's going to end up anyway.
Well, and I think you're also seeing there's issues with the NFL and the NFLPA on trying to get what's a return to work look like. So there's some issues there, right? And
of course,
who was it? The Pac-12. Yeah, the Pac-12 came out and said conference only for fall sports, and a lot of them they're looking to push to the spring.
That's interesting. See, I mean, to me, that makes a lot of sense too. Like, what keeps you from having some of those fall sports in the spring? I'm other than just they don't.
It's a traditional schedule.
Yeah, it is, but I don't know that it's necessary. I think that's something that you find in schools. I think that's something that with college, you have a unique scenario where they need to kind of slow down to me. And instead of saying, well, we're not doing anything for a year, why not wait and slow things down so we're not doing anything for this semester? We'll see what happens, next semester or this, I think that's – I don't know.
And I think the reality of the situation too is, and we've talked about this ad nauseum, that college football is huge business, massive.
Oh my gosh,
big business, right? So
it's their biggest business.
Yeah, and I mean, I think really what's gonna determine what happens with NCAA football, whether we like it or not, is whatever the SEC does. That's gonna dictate how college football looks this year.
Right. And it is interesting because they have a lot of what, schools are going through and different things where it's kind of decentralized too a little bit, where SEC could do one thing, Big 12 could do another thing. The NCAA doesn't really have a ton of control when it comes to what they do in these scenarios. So it is interesting.
Well, NCAA has lost a lot on football. They've lost a lot of the control on football.
Right,
because
exactly.
You now have the BCS conferences that really dictate kind of what they're going to do.
Correct.
And
then it'll just trickle down. But you got the Ivy Leagues have already said they're done. They're not playing any sports for right. Didn't Ivy League say no sports all year?
It's hard to keep up on that.
I think
Ivy League smell test.
Yeah, no, I think Ivy League was one of the first, and they came out saying, and it may have been just fall sports and just football, or and football, in particular. But I think Ivy League also said no.
Yeah.
So I just again,
and good sponsor of the show, Oakley, who sponsors both of our sunglasses.
Yes,
they came out with the mouth.
They're in the mail, I think, aren't they? They're sending us.
Yeah.
Right.
They came out with have you seen the mouth guard that they've got? It's basically like the shield that you see guys wearing for their eyes.
Sure.
Well, now that's going to kind of cover all the way down to about here. So it's kind of like if you think about like Sal Perez's catcher's mask.
Yeah.
Like think if that had a clear shield
It's clear all the way down.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to that extreme of doing the equipment in such a drastic way and modifying it and changing it. Again, to me, it goes to this cost, benefit type. Why are we doing it then? Again, I think we all miss sports. Like, I miss sports more than, just as about as much as anyone, you more than me, like, there's just a level of, but we still haven't lost them for so long, like it's only been, NBA went out in March. I think, again, we've lost kind of track of really how long this has all been going on.
So we lost
NBA quit in March. So you're going, April, May, June, and here we are in July.
Yeah. So you've lost April, May, June, July. You've lost 4 months, 4.5 months.
Yeah.
And then you lost all of baseball.
Potentially they're going to try. I mean, as of right now, they're going to try. Right, they're going to try like half a season or something,
60 games, 60
games,
no fans, but they're going to play it in their home stadiums, which I just don't get. But neither here nor there.
That will never.
So what
happen.
I did,
that is so dumb. They're not going to do that either. That is dumb. You know what they'll play? They'll play at like the Little League World Series. They'll play in like Omaha or some place like that. But
and that's kind of leads us. So the NBA is doing their bubble.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the players that have gotten in trouble for going outside the bubble?
Of course they have. Yes, I did hear, because he went out and got some food, and other stuff. He had to get some grub, man. He ain't waiting around in this bubble. Here, the thing is this. I don't think people realize it wouldn't be great living in a bubble. I mean, it's not a bubble, obviously, like what we would think of as, like real quarantine. You can't, but it also isn't great. Your family, there's a lot of, there's just a lot of things that living in the bubble isn't great.
Well, and I think that's one of the big downfalls of this thing that we put together here. So do you want to let's present the bubble. 2C's.
Who's on the bubble?
NFL bubble schedule. So we have come up with a concept. So I've laid the groundwork here. Your job is to poke holes, chat about it a little bit. Okay. So
yes. So you've done all the work, and then I complain about it, which sounds
right.
Basically how this goes. This is great.
I put a lot of work into this, a lot of thought. Now you're going to just come in and shit on it. That's
destroy it. Yes.
What we do.
Fun.
All right. Okay.
Love this.
All right. So let's start with the assumptions and guidelines of our new schedule. Okay. So first of all, I'm making it a 14-game season.
Okay.
You're taking notes. Okay.
Yeah, of course. All right.
So what I have done is I have eliminated the variable games. So the NFL has a very simplistic, when it boils down to it, conceptually their scheduling is very simple. You play 14 with your division. So the AFC West, they are going to play 14 games that are similar, that are the same. They're going to have 2 variable games based on where they finish. So Kansas City, for example, that finished first in the division, is going to play Baltimore
Ravens
and Houston. They're off division. So you always play one conference division outside of, you play each team in your division twice, play a conference, the entire 4 once, and then you play an NFC conference. So that gets you your 14 games. Then you have the 2 variables of your conference like finishers.
Sure.
So that's what I'm eliminating, is those 2 variable games. So everybody gets a bye after week 7.
Right.
Okay. So that's I know that the NFL owners have been pushing for, like a 90-game schedule. But we're going to bring it back to 14 games.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
It was like a hyperbole. I got it. I was going to say,
yeah.
I was like, man, they might be. I mean, it's, but.
So you good there? 14 games?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to do bye week after game, and then we're going to eliminate the 2 variable games.
I think it's ambitious again, 14 games, but yeah.
Okay. Yes. So it's going to be a pod-based system. And by that, I'm going to have 4 pods. Okay, and there's going to be 8 teams in each one of these pods. And then after week 7, after your bye, you quarantine, and then you rotate to the next pod. Okay. So,
Wow.
all right. So this is kind of where it gets a little weird. This is where you're probably going to have a lot of issues with the player saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to one of these pods and going to be there for, the entire season and not see my family and, not see my friends and not be able to have people come in and out, that type of stuff. That's probably issue number one that would derail this whole thing.
Sure, but again, this is something that is happening in the other leagues. So let's go on that assumption as well, right? Is that's happening? Okay.
Yeah. So now when we think about
let me say this: if it comes between them getting paid or going and doing this, and you're passing up like millions of dollars, to me, it's a no-brainer. Who we got popping back there?
Oh, look at this. Show Matt what you got.
Feeling?
Look at there.
Oh, Toothless Joe.
Lost a tooth.
Yeah.
Annika lost that front tooth. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Where that Tooth Fairy at?
Tooth Fairy came in.
Yeah.
Paid her a visit. Paid her some money.
Big day. That's amazing.
You what?
$5.
Tooth Fairy gave her $5.
The Tooth Fairy nowadays, my kids also too. It's an inflation or something has happened with the Tooth Fairy. Kids get rich now on the Tooth Fairy.
I remember getting $1, maybe $2.
Right. If you got any kind of green, it wasn't a coin. You were like, oh my god, the Tooth Fairy. But yeah, $5. That's amazing.
You're what?
I'm lucky.
She's lucky. She's
luckiest girl in town.
Okay, so we got. Why don't you go watch your show? I'm going to talk to Matt for a little bit. Okay.
My iPad died.
Okay, we'll go plug your iPad in. Trying to do an award-winning podcast here.
That's right. No, she's already made it better. Actually, this is much better than us.
Go find the other iPad. What about the? What?
I want to go in that window.
You want what?
I go in that window.
Okay, go find it. Go find something to do. Okay. All right, come back and talk to us in a little bit. All right.
Bye-bye.
Annika's out of here.
All right. Come in and weigh in on this 18 pod
She's
system.
back. Yeah. She doesn't like she does not like the 8 teams per pod. She's not a fan.
I get it.
Okay, so now my 4 pods, the reason for the rotation is what I'm going to do is I'm going to send 2 divisions to each pod at a time. So 8 teams. So for example, I'm going to send the AFC West and the AFC East. And we'll see that when we get to the schedule as to why that would happen. And then I'm going to rotate pods where I'm going to send the AFC West and the NFC South to the same pod. And then we'll see why that would happen as well. So that's the reason for the breakdown of the pods. Conceptually, Is it making sense?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Next thing. Okay, we're going to play a 4-part season. So part 1, 3 games. You're going to play everybody in your division. Part 2 is going to be your conference off division that we talked about. So AFC West plays AFC East. AFC Central plays AFC South. And then however the NFC West, NFC East, NFC. Yeah. So, okay. And then part 3 is going to be your non-conference. So AFC West plays the NFC South. The AFC East plays, whoever they play, and so on and so forth. And then part 4, you close the season back with your division game. So kind of the way that I'd set it up is that in week 1, so basically week 1, the first place team plays second, then they play the third, then they play the fourth, and then from last year's finish.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the backside, they would
run as long as everyone's playing everyone, I don't know that would matter order-wise or how you did. You know what I mean? At that point.
Well, it just made it easier on me to schedule it.
Yeah, no, I get it. Right.
Yeah, I got to make it
put it all out. Sure. No, because you went even farther than this. You took it from like the hypothetical here to the actual.
Yeah, I actually put a schedule together for all 32 teams. No big deal, guys. You're welcome. NFL.
Yeah, exactly.
At NFL, call us.
Of course.
We've offered our help before. You're too arrogant to call us.
Of course. All right. Not for free, of course.
No. We just want Mahomes ×2 deal. There's 2 of us.
And once you see this plan, you will be like, that's a steal.
And that's reasonable because there's 2 of us.
There's 2 of us. We're not taking. If they said we had to split Mahomes money, like, I don't know, I'd negotiate from there, I guess.
Yeah.
But
listen,
if that's their floor,
we just want what Mahomes got plus 1 penny each. That's all we want. That's all we want. We're good.
Right.
We're
I
good.
like that. That's like Monopoly. I always thought like when I negotiate a Monopoly, I got to get one piece of So that one penny is very important.
1 penny. Yeah. All right. So I have
days.
I have 16. Yeah. I went on ahead and scheduled the games. So again,
Monday Night Football still a thing. Friday night go ahead. Sorry.
I'm going on the assumption that college football will not happen.
Fair. And
okay.
and maybe high school too.
Yeah.
Because high school's Friday night, college is Saturday night, right?
Now, in theory, my pods were spaced across the country. I had a pod in each time zone.
Yeah.
So
I remember we workshopped that a little bit.
Yeah. Which I didn't name the pods because my original thought on the pods, you quickly shot all of those down and said, COVID hotbed.
Those cities are, potentially.
So,
but I think there are cities that could have worked potentially. But
so my game days, and the reason why I've kind of put this together is you want to maximize your TV exposure here. You want to maximize your exposure, and the way you do that is standalone games. So as you can see, of our 16 games on a weekly basis, we only have 4 games that are in competition with each other.
Right, played simultaneously.
So we only have an early game on, and I'm using the 11 a.m. Kind of like they do in college, right? We get this 11 a.m. start time.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
And then we get the 2:30 p.m. and the 6 o'clock and the 9:30.
Because it does depend on what are you basing that off Central Time, I'm assuming then. So it would be, or no?
Yeah. So all of these are based off of Central Time.
Sure. So it'd be noon Eastern.
Yeah. Which obviously your 9:30 games out here, those would be your West Coast pod. Whoever's in the West Coast pod.
Right.
You're going to play 9:30, which is a 7:30 local time start. So I'm trying to, make it to where you've got local time,
Again, it's the college model of like,
right.
Those were all of the Pac-12 games and all that stuff, where all the West Coast games are always the late night games because they're not really late night for them.
Right. And so like your Monday night, it's kind of the model of week 1 Monday night.
But it also depends on where their pods are, right? We realize this as well. Like some of this is going to depend not on like West Coast teams. It's going to depend on where your pod's at, depending,
Correct. And that's another thing as we kind of look specifically into the pods. I mean, we may be sending a Boston team to the West Coast for, 4 months.
Exactly. Right.
How's that going to fly? Right. Like,
again, sure. And but when you look at the model of what's barely working in the NBA and with soccer and anything else, I mean, to me, this model is what they're going to have to eventually adopt, and I just
if you're going to have
if you're going to have it, if you're going to have a season, right?
So I do kind of like the Friday through Monday.
Super great. As far as like a football fan and saying, okay, from Friday to Monday, I'm watching NFL football. It's great.
And I really just personally, I don't like the Thursday night game.
Thursday night games are terrible. It's a terrible idea.
So I do like
it's always been in reverence. The way I've always heard it, is reverence to high school and college, right. So if they're not having either, then what's it matter? And I am pro not having either because neither one of those people are, getting paid. You talk about some of these guys, you go, well, again, just add it to the list of things they're risking, right, by playing football, but they're also getting highly rewarded for that. Whereas in the college arguments and whether they should get paid or not is neither here nor, that's a different argument for a different day, but definitely high school students aren't,
Yeah. And I just don't think, I mean, kind of going back to it, I don't know if this is necessarily a moot point or not, because I just can't see like these aren't guys. Many of these guys do not, even the league minimum guys make enough money that like a normal person like us,
right?
They have their income is way more than what we would make.
Yeah.
1,000%. And so the money is so good. Do they really need to risk it? Because everything, we've had the Larry Bird conversation, right? Like how many years did Larry play in the NBA? Like 8, 9? LeBron's going on I think LeBron's going on his 18th year.
Yeah. I think Larry played a few more years than that.
How many
Yes.
how many good years did he have?
Exactly. No, by the end, you remember he was laying on the floor. He couldn't
Exactly.
sit. He couldn't sit on
Yeah.
the bench.
His back was so destroyed,
Right.
so I mean, we hear about things like load management and,
Right, but
you know,
that's also a thing now too that wasn't a thing back then as
yeah,
well. I mean, guys played, whereas dudes just don't play. Again, that's why we talked about. I had from my other show, but I have this Cal Ripken rookie card here. But that's a record that'll never be broken, and it won't even be attempted. Cal Ripken's
because
record. Or any sports things like that.
dudes sit, right?
Right.
We're going to rest you.
Yeah.
Not only are you physically tired, we need to mentally, there's a lot
And
of
whether
people.
whether it's the player's choice or the manager or the organizations, right? It's a lot of times it's not the player that wants to sit. It's them telling them, no, this is your day to sit. Sorry, we've got an investment in you, millions of dollars, and you're going to sit. Sometimes.
Well, exactly. So the money is so big now that there's a huge investment in these players and their health and their longevity.
Right.
When you kind of look at Jordan, like there was, we kind of joke about like, could you imagine Jordan sitting out because he's mentally tired? Like Michael Jordan taking a load management day? No, he doesn't.
No.
But here's what he did. He retired twice. And he went away for
Exactly.
18 months.
Right.
And then he
that's
retired.
what I was going to say. He should have. That would have been my argument. Would be yes. Obviously, he should have because it really mentally affected him.
Yeah, he pushed so hard to the point where he just flamed out and had to 100%. Go away for a little bit.
Totes.
And so, all right. So game days, no Thursday night games. We've got a couple on Friday. Saturday and Sunday are full. Which I have noticed that. And I'll be honest with you, and it's probably because I'm in a place where I can have the TV on during the day. The MLS is playing during the day, and I personally like having live sports on.
Yeah, I think it's great
during the workday. But you're not going to get huge numbers because there's not everybody can sit there and watch, or they're going to have their
No, your main nights to me when you look at this are you going to be your primetime games later on Saturday and Sunday, but it's going to be Monday and Friday.
I think your showcase games would be your showcase games would be your Friday night game and your Monday night games. So all right, so those are kind of game days and game times. All right, what do we got next? Okay, site selection. This is a part where I was kind of looking for neutral sites, no domes. When I first started this, and you brought up a great point, preferably Super Bowl host cities. And the reason why I was kind of leaning towards Super Bowl host cities is because they're going to have the infrastructure. I mean, if we're going to send 8 teams to a city, I don't think you could send 8 teams to Kansas City and have the infrastructure to get those 8 teams practice facilities, hotels, their bubble.
It's a tricky the way our stadium is too, with Arrowhead being so far away from the city itself, and I don't think it would work out here. I don't think it would work here.
What you could do with a place like Kansas City is Kansas City is the hub, and you have 4 games each week.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 4 games, you have a jewel game. Like you've got the A game that's like the
for sure.
The A game, right? That's going to have like a Tony Romo, Jim Nance call it, and then you're going to have the Ian Eagle, Dan Fouts game on down to Spiro Didi, and So what you could do with a place like Kansas City is you could have a game at Arrowhead. You could have a game in Lawrence. You could have a game in Columbia. You could have a game up in St. Joe or Sporting. Places like that.
Sporting they used for they were using for that Northwest Missouri State Pittsburgh State game they were having every year. Remember that? Because they're like the best NAIA football teams or whatever in the country or Division III or whatever they are.
Yeah. So I mean, possibly places that have like high end.
Yeah. I mentioned Salt Lake. I think Salt Lake is a place to me because it definitely hasn't had and the question is the football stadiums and what capabilities they have there, but they definitely have soccer stadiums. They have the Olympics there. And so part of me is like some of that Olympics infrastructure has to be somewhat there, I don't know.
Yeah, but it was the Winter
Atlanta,
Olympics.
huh?
It was the Winter Olympics.
Yes, but you would think you would still have certain things that,
Yeah,
and it
the
was a while
amenities,
ago. Yeah,
infrastructure.
potentially like you would have hospital, or sorry, like hotel. I mean, you need
No, we
hospitals too, but
definitely
like,
need hospitals too.
yeah, hotel hub, area where you could see. To me, that's where you've got a problem here, right? Is that you would have to bus the players, like you would have to have such a huge bubble because you would have to bus the players all the way out to Lawrence to play, all the way up here, to Eastern Jackson County for the Arrowhead, or and all these different places, Wyandotte County for sporting. It's just it's a tricky deal.
Yeah, but all of those places are a charter away. So if they're housed, because I know the city and the layout of the city, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I house them in hotels downtown.
Yeah.
Okay, I fly
But
them
that's
out of.
I mean, but think about them. Is that a bubble though? I don't know.
Well, I fly them out of downtown on private planes.
Oh shit, they are rich.
So
fly? I mean,
yeah, that's where private planes fly in and out of. They
no,
fly
no,
out of
downtown. No. I know downtown airport, but where are you going to fly that's going to help you get to? I mean, there's a Lawrence airport, surely.
Yeah, you can fly those private planes into Lawrence. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
no, I know those
that charters.
One. I'm just saying, like you wouldn't be able to get to Arrowhead. You'd have to drive to Arrowhead, but
you'd bus them. You'd bus them to Arrowhead, and you could possibly bus to Lawrence.
Sporting. So you could do it to Wyandotte
because Lawrence is half hour from downtown.
Yeah.
Maybe 45 minutes, but
right, longer than they're used to. Sorry,
and then the same thing as St. Joe. But I mean, you could take charter planes and get them there in 20 minutes.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure they'd prefer that.
But the one non-negotiable for me, no baseball stadiums.
Okay.
We just can't just
aesthetically, it just looks terrible.
Don't you remember playing in Oakland? How terrible!
Oh no, it's so bad. It's so bad. No, I thought that was what you were going for. I didn't. The other piece would be if baseball actually ends up playing in their home stadiums, you couldn't do that, right? I mean, there would be
but I just don't. I think it's just a terrible look.
Right. So I wasn't sure which argument you were going with, and I think I basically agree with both. Although I would say if it meant that you could play, maybe you do. The players aren't going to agree to that, though. I mean, the players are already going to have to agree to so much. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, let's play on these freaking fields that we're going to blow out in an ACL too. The second we play on them, there's no way.
Well, and I think also you'd almost have to stay in the southern region of the country, because if you tried to go north, then you were going to bring weather into play late in the year. So that's why I was thinking, you're probably looking at like a Knoxville, Nashville, someplace in Tennessee.
You could definitely do that.
Probably someplace.
Tennessee's had some. Again, those are the states
you
talked about, right?
And the site selection I didn't put on here is, it probably needs to not be a COVID hotbed, which
that didn't work out with Orlando, right? I mean, they've got the NBA and MLS in Orlando right now, and that Florida's as hot as anywhere. So, I mean, there's a level of, if you truly are in a bubble, and if it's a tight and a good, well-run bubble, it probably could be done anywhere,
Well, and I think it also goes back to what is your case tolerance? What do you accept for?
It's like
what do you accept?
100% until you're what are you allowed before you're shutting things completely down? And I will tell you, like the MLS doesn't do perfect on a lot of things, and in fact they do things a lot terribly, and they're not a really well structured league ownership wise and things like that. I have liked how they've done this though, and I mean the minute that a team has gotten any kind of, so they're testing constantly, and then the minute they get a positive test, they basically postpone the game, right? But then they play it like the next day. Once they figure out who had it, they retest everybody else, and then they get right back on the field. So it's like this just days worth of postponement, to then play. So I don't know. But like you said, the MLS is very unique because they don't necessarily have a situation where a Patrick Mahomes doesn't play. If Patrick Mahomes goes positive, and, no one wants to watch the Chiefs without Mahomes. I mean, I don't. And I love that, I'm not Does that make sense? You know,
No,
there's a
it makes a
level.
lot of sense because what do you do if Pat Mahomes is walking in, Friday at 5:30, 4:30, 3:30, whatever for his Friday night game, and all of a sudden Patrick's got a temperature,
Yeah.
and then he gets pulled to the side, and then they take his temperature 15 minutes later, and he's still got a temperature. Sorry, Pat can't play. And I don't know if you can
Do you
really
keep play the
postpone.
game? Do you play the game and do you go, well, Matt Moore's the quarterback and now the level of, football that we're going to see is going to go down a notch. No one really wants to watch a Matt Moore led. God bless Matt Moore. Matt
Well, and
Moore. I'll never talk bad about it. I saw they re-signed him and I love that.
yeah,
But on the flip side, like, I don't want to watch a Matt Moore led. I hope I never see Matt Moore play quarterback again, personally, right? Like, I mean, nothing personal against the kid. He's a guy. He's not a kid, but he's phenomenal. He did great. And but like, yeah, so I think that's the other piece of it. And sometimes you have that in the NBA, but that's not a thing that you have in the NFL. Yes, do players get hurt? Stars, yes, but not like this, not like where I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know.
yeah, I think that it's a major thing, regardless of how they do it. If they
Right.
play,
If
how
they end up
what's
like they
the
postpone it, like maybe some of these, if you looked at some of these things too, Andy, you could what probably also would be thinkable. Here's one hole I'll blow in it. So I would think what might not be a bad idea is to have some like a lot of flexibility in this schedule, right? Does that make sense? To where
Mhm.
you're going, okay, we got, a team with some positive test on Friday. Let's postpone that game, till Tuesday. So it almost is a more fluid thing where you're more just going and the power that the NFL probably has is they can probably pull that off to where they're going to ESPN, they're going to these network affiliates and going, hey, we may not play on these scheduled times like we're saying, but we're going to play somewhere down the road and just clear that whenever we're ready, you put us on, right? And the NFL's probably got that much pop.
Well, the interesting thing on that is there's a difference in recovery time for an
Super great
NFL
point
player
too.
versus MLS, right? So if I put somebody on Tuesday and their
They
next
can't.
scheduled game is Friday,
Yes
yeah,
and no. The only thing is the NFLPA has already agreed to Thursday games. I don't think they love them, but there's teams that
but there
go
but
Monday,
there's
Thursday,
no, there's never a Monday Thursday.
or
There's stipulations that they
but there's Thursday Sundays and
yeah
stuff. I
yeah
mean,
that
I
they
don't know.
play Sunday Thursday and then they're off
Yeah,
till at least the following Sunday.
and maybe that's how you would do it. Is that maybe there's a potential that. And I'm sure that's something they would have to negotiate where we wouldn't play ever more than 3 days in a row, like 3 days between each other or 4 days between each other.
Right.
And then if we do have to play those 4 days close, that we then have to give you 7 days no matter what at that point after that for both those teams or, so yeah, something that I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's
crazy.
nasty. So I think the last thing I had here was the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm going to see this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We are not quite ready for the big
Yeah, so the
revert
playoffs.
okay. So, less teams in the playoffs. So keep the same amount of teams right now because they're adding them, right?
Yeah, right now this year there's supposed to be 7 teams that make in each division or each conference.
Right.
So I say revert back to the playoff format,
Should
and then
do that anyway.
All playoffs in the Super Bowl are held in Tampa. So you make the playoffs, you're sent to Tampa. Tampa's the Super Bowl city this year.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tournament in Tampa where you've got the, all the
it's
teams.
Like a new bubble.
A new bubble. So it's a little bit of a, I guess it's kind of stolen from the NCAA tournament where, in the NCAA tournament, you have the first 2 rounds that are played. And then if you advance to that, you meet the bracket below and you go to a new site and then you play. And then if you advance from there, you go to a new site and meet, all the advancers.
Yeah.
So,
it would be interesting also when I look up their site selection. Would domes be completely out of the question? And it would depend on because you have so many open, open air domes now. Like, and then you also have like, if they're in a bubble, and if they're, you know what I mean, and all the people that are going into the dome are pretty much, you know, I don't know. I get that concept too. That you'd want to play outdoors for sure if possible.
Well, I think the thing about a dome.
Well, and weather, let me say that. And the other in Pro Dome also too would allow you to play wherever because you wouldn't really worry about the weather at that point.
And the thing I would think about when I think about domes is they're so big. Do you really need, because if you're not putting 70,000 people in there, if you're not like
no
Arrowhead,
doubt.
if you're not putting 70,000 people. The one thing I would also say is that I hope that the NFL does not, what I've had an issue with is, and it just comes to me, it comes off so disingenuous. Like I've been watching, I heard the NHL wants for people to send in videos. Yeah, boo.
I know.
Go Smashville, you know, like teams, yays, boos, team specific chants.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
So here's the thing. It's an emotional response to something that happened is why you get the crowd noise. So if it's basically we're now laugh tracking sports is really what we're.
Have you watched any soccer games with the pumped in?
I've seen. I haven't really seen the pumped in stuff, but I've seen on the sideboards and the inboard where they go to. Looks like they have a live feed into certain people's houses.
They have a Zoom. They basically have a Zoom just like we do right now. That's like set up on like a big billboard, right?
Yeah.
That those people are watching, and then the players can kind of see them, and the fans show them. Now with the Premier League,
the players don't care.
No, of course not. Of course. Oh my God. Well, let me say that. I mean, is there something to playing in front of a bunch of people and like that mattering? Yes. Now, as far as the Zoom people being there or not, or if it just being completely empty, then yes, the players, it makes no difference to them. My thing would be, if you watch the Premier League, they pump in noise. They try to literally track it with, there's somebody back there that's in charge of like when, you know, let's say Liverpool is about to score, you know, they'll rise up the crowd noise a little bit. They've got their certain chants. So they've literally like, I guess, taken tapes of their of their games before and it just figured out a soundtrack for it. It's terrible to me. I don't like it at all. And they should not do any kind of artificial stuff to me. The people that want sports right now are people who don't need that to me. Like I would love to hear the game, you know, like we were laying watching Sporting, me and Deanna, and I was just blown away and I kept saying, listen to them talk, you know, they are just talking nonstop, like,
right.
You know, on the field. So that's so neat to me as a sports purist that, yeah, screw that, like fake sound and trash.
I think for the NFL and the NBA, you'd have to be real careful with that. Cause I know what the pickup game at the local Genesis sounds like for a pickup basketball game. I think you need to be super careful pumping that into onto live TV. You're definitely gonna need the 7-second delay and the beep button, or
that's the key. And yes, every once in a while it gets through, and they have to kind of go. It happens in soccer sometimes where they'll, you know, one little one they'll do, and you'll hear the announcer kind of. Sorry. And you know, one of them will sneak through, and the announcer will have to just kind of go. You know, sorry about that, folks at home. Hey, sorry about that language.
Our fault. Got the explicit content. Okay. Yeah. So here's kind of the assumption and the guidelines. You want to see what the schedule is going to look like?
Yes, I really want to see this.
Anxiously awaiting the schedule. All right, here is the AFC schedule unveil. You ready?
Yes.
All right, here we go.
Wow.
All right. So this is where you can kind of see the pods come into play. So weeks 1 through 7, you see the AFC West and the AFC East are in the yellow pod. The AFC North and the AFC South are in the orange pod. Then starting in week 8, the AFC East is going to go join the NFC West in the orange pod. AFC North is going to go join the NFC East, and the AFC South is going to go join the NFC North. And the reason why we've done this is, again, because we've got our divisional games weeks 1 through 3. So, for example, New England is going to play Buffalo, New York, the Jets, and Miami in that first week. Then they're going to shift over and they're going to play the AFC West. So then they're going to play Kansas City, Denver, LA, and Vegas. They're going to get a bye, and then they're going to shift pods. And so then they're going to play their off division, as we talked about before. So they're going to play San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams, Arizona, and then they run it back with their division. And that replicates across all 8 divisions.
So tell me what's green and blue down there then? Tell me the
I guess who you're in a pod, who you're in a pod with. So for example, if we go to the NFC, you're going to see the NFC South, they're going to be in the gray pod with the NFC North, because that's
the piece I didn't see, because if you go back to the AFC, there was no one matched blue and green. Does that make sense?
Right.
So I was where are they going? But they're just on the
it's their NFC. It's their NFC pod. So now that limits you to who you're in pods with, but I mean, you do end up, you are in pods with 11 different teams through the course of the year. So, the question is that better, or is it better for Kansas City to fly to Denver, then fly home? Kansas City to fly to Las Vegas, then fly home. The Chargers fly here and then fly home,
it's an interesting, I mean, and maybe that's a lot. I mean, it does end up being a lot of teams and a lot of people in one place at one time, but on the flip side, right, is the travel and like the spreading as you travel across the country, as bad or worse? And that, it's an interesting question.
Well, and the really bad thing this year, just unlucky. Well, I mean, this whole thing is unlucky, but the unlucky thing is you have the AFC West and the AFC East playing. So where do you put that pod? Is that pod going to be, middle of the country, a Nashville type place?
Yeah, I do think I don't at that point, if you have no fans, and that's something we talked about a little bit too, that I don't know that you have to, because really ideally you wouldn't have that much travel back and forth either, right? You're just going to fly there one time. You're going to, play your games that you're going to play there. So part of me is like, that's why I thought like Salt Lake would be good. I think neutral sites, no matter where they were, is going to be beneficial. I think if the only way it wouldn't be fair is if Kansas City had a pod in Kansas City,
sure.
And that's where truly that would be unfair. But if you got everybody traveling, and maybe one team has to travel a couple hours farther than the other teams, I mean, they're still going to be equally inconvenienced.
Once you're there, you're not really traveling. But the issue would be is like when you have, say week 8, okay, you've got San Francisco, and if we're looking at the AFC East, you've got San Francisco, a Pacific time zone team, against New England, an East Coast time team. All right, how do you maximize to where both of those fan bases can watch? It's probably one of those things where you'd have to put it, it's going to have to be like, that would be like one of your Sunday afternoon games or something like that.
And here's the other piece, Andy, is that, again, the NFL has so much like reach that, again, I don't know that it matters. Think about they've sacrificed those London games. Those London games are on at like 8 a.m, and people watch those like crazy.
They're on at noon because they start them at 6 o'clock London time, so they become like noon Central time.
Well, here when the London games, we don't watch them at noon. Not that I remember.
Well,
I thought they were real early.
They have had some that start at 8 a.m. Central time.
9, I thought they were earlier ones, but now they've got later.
They've also have them start at 6 p.m. London time, which translates to about noon here. That translates to the traditional 1 o'clock kickoff time, but they'll have them early. But
I would just say that, again, if you put the product on and you say, here, it's the NFL, this is how we're going to have the NFL or nothing. And it's going to be on weird days and it's going to be at weird times. I think people are going to watch,
Yeah, I mean, I think that people are watching because the other thing is for many of us, the world has changed. There's like we open our store later because we have no commuters.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's driving from our suburb downtown.
Right. There's not as much,
it's not enough to warrant opening for business.
Right.
I mean, I've driven around, had to make an errand and had to go downtown, which used to be, oh geez, in order to get back by this time, I'm going to have to leave at this time, and
sure.
So I'm really going to have to boogie. And now it's just like, well, it's about a 20-minute drive down. So I guess it's going to take me 10 minutes in there. So I guess I need to leave about 35 minutes before in case there's a, minor snag or a line at the store. I can't find it or.
Right. Exactly. Because there's not a rush hour really. I mean, especially in Kansas City, right.
Not anymore.
But it was interesting. Some of those guys that I know in Los Angeles, they said the same thing. I mean, that was the most bizarre thing for them is that, I remember, one of them saying to the other, like, you got to get out and drive, man. Just drive. Just get on don't go anywhere. Like, just drive around on the highway because you can now, you just can't no matter what time of day in LA, like it's insane. So, but
we had to go out to Kansas for something a few days ago and we drove back through and, on that stretch where you come into downtown,
mm-hmm.
It's a retrofitted design, so it makes it just this bottleneck right outside of Old Kemper Arena where you go from 3 lanes down to 1.
Yeah, no, that's so brilliant.
And like we were like backed up, and I don't know, man, there was maybe 10 cars.
Yeah.
On normal time, dude, there'd be 30 cars. You'd be down the bridge.
Exactly. Right.
You'd be cussing the guy that went around and cut in, all that. And we're like, oh my God, we had 10 cars in front of us. This is ridiculous, but
yeah.
The next thing you know, it's like you're looking down and you're like, oh, geez, I need to watch my speed.
So that could be the piece of that infrastructure piece that may be not as necessary either, because you do have less, I don't know, there's less things in the way, to get you from point A to point B, again, and maybe – and that might be the safest piece too. Again, if you're going to have these communities may not want, if you're going to have that many NFL teams, which again, you're going to have a certain amount of staff, you're going to have a certain amount, medical staff, equipment staff, all those things. Like you may want it in a smaller, city and setting because, again, you may not want to add fuel to the fire of any big cities, having that kind of problem. So
the interesting thing would be is it would almost be a detriment to have it because it's not like you would get all that extra tax revenue of, why do you want to host a big event? What is the lure of having a Super Bowl?
Right.
WrestleMania.
Exactly. If there's no fans, then there's no point for cities to have these. Right. I mean, again, Orlando is set up because it's already a amusement park town. I mean, that town is literally, an amusement park with a city around it, like it's not like the opposite, So it was already set up with all these ridiculous amounts of like basketball gyms and and soccer field, all these different, and they also have the weather for it, too. They have good weather all year round. So it was just perfectly set up, for that kind of, and maybe again, like a Tampa area, but I mean, tell me, here's a question I had for you that I haven't had answered, or I don't know. Do they have every NBA team in the bubble all at once right now?
Yes. Everybody that's playing is in the bubble.
So when you say everybody that's playing, are they in the playoffs now?
No, they didn't invite all of the teams.
Okay.
So they only invited the teams that had the opportunity to make the playoffs. So I think they only invited 22 teams. So you had to be within 4 games of the 8th seed. So 1 through 8 were invited, and then anybody that was kind of within a handful of games.
Yeah, so that's what I was curious about. I
Yeah.
was like, okay, are they just like, because I keep hearing them say, it's basically the playoffs and they're starting the playoffs. I'm like, okay, so they just have the playoff teams, but how did they do that? Because that's really screws over the teams that were really close, but all of a sudden the season just stops. So they
Yeah,
had
so
some
like
sort of cutoff. Okay.
so like the New Orleans Pelicans
Right.
were out.
Which
They
they're
got
probably
they
thrilled. They're
got in
probably like,
well they
I'm
get
glad.
well
Go
they got
ahead, sorry.
invited.
Oh.
But the interesting thing is I think they were chasing the Memphis Grizzlies or vice versa. But if you looked at the schedule, the actual schedule, one of those teams, I think the team that was like 4.5 games out, had like the easiest schedule left. I think New Orleans had like a super easy schedule and Memphis had a really hard schedule. But now that you put everybody back in and then they reschedule because you're no longer playing your Golden States and teams like that are, teen win teams.
Right.
It does take those teams that had like an easy schedule or played a hard schedule up to this point and, made it more difficult. To me, the interesting thing would have been in the NBA is if they would have brought everyone back, the possibility of Golden State having Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, could they have made a run?
Yeah, see, that's kind of what MLS decided to do, but they were nowhere near into their season like the NBA was. But they just said, "Okay, here's the deal: we're going to have they're just going to have a tournament."
Two games? Didn't
Two
Sporting
games.
they'd played 2 games?
Correct.
Yeah, so
and most of the league had either played 2 or 3 games, right? So, which is sure that's a totally different scenario.
They
But
hadn't
I would
played
also
2/3
say,
of the season.
yeah, but here's what I would also say: I don't know that this wouldn't be better for the NBA to do too, and say, hey, let's make this a fun little tournament in the middle of our season. If this is all we get for basketball, then we crown the tournament champion as our NBA champion this year. We let everybody back in. We seed it as the way they were kind of standings as they were going in. And then you just have kind of a fun little tournament. Now, then if things get better, because that's what MLS is doing basically with their tournament. They're basically going, hey, this is just a fun little tournament. You get a money prize if you win, and you get this Champions League. You get to be in this Champions League tournament later on. It's like another thing. But so there's some incentive to win it, but it's also not it's not like the end all be all.
Right.
They're basically saying we're going to have this little tournament, and then if things get better, we're going to finish our regular season. Does that make sense?
And I think everything's going to be an asterisk.
Yeah, sure. That's why I'm saying just have a tournament, let everybody back in, have some fun with it. Let everybody back in, set it up like an NCAA, not like more like a round robin-y type. Don't make it like, one and done like the NCAA tournament, but make it like somehow to where it's, again, more of a soccer style tournament, where you get points for wins and shit, weird shit like that.
Yeah. See, I would have liked to have seen like the NBA go to like a World Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
Type.
That'd be super fun.
Play 32 teams, 8,
right.
8,
how cool would that be? And how much interest would that be? And then again, yes, you get teams like Golden State that goes, hey, we've had everybody hurt and we've been getting killed all year because we haven't had our players, but all of a sudden we're healthy and now we can have some fun with it, I don't know. That's fun.
See, I like the way the World Cup does it. I like that style where you've got the round robin part.
Yeah, and then you go to elimination.
And then you go to an elimination, single elimination, because it does take a little bit of the fluke.
Exactly.
Now, the NCAA tournament, there are some flukes that happen, and those are awesome. But do we really want to see it's kind of like the whole 10 Cup. Remember in 10 Cup, the guy's like, give me names, give me stars. I don't want this, fluke, because you want names that are recognizable. You want
marketable things, right? Exactly. And you want the best teams. And honestly, like sometimes the best team gets beat by a vastly inferior team on a night.
Yeah.
And then you never get to see that team play again, and that's a shame because they're clearly
that vastly inferior team gets blown out by 35 by a 9 seed.
Right. Who honestly is right because they are really they just hit the, flat or a flash in a pan that night, So yeah, I think it would have been I don't know. The way, to me, this is weird. You know, the more I thought about it, I was like, if they really did just invite a few of the teams that could kind of make it and blah, that's weird to me. I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, they only invited, I think it was 22 teams, maybe 23.
I mean, I get limiting the teams. Like, what's the point? If you're really trying to have a regular season to crown a winner and there's a team that cannot make it, you know, then yes, less people, the less COVID, you know, in theory. But
well, and like they're really the team that's going to be at the biggest disadvantage next year is a team that loses the finals. Yeah. Because if the playoffs extend all the way to the end, I think they get done sometime middle of October.
Wow. Yeah.
And then they're starting the regular season next year. Training camp's like almost on time.
You take it for a championship, though. You're probably screwed next year, but you know.
No, I mean the team that comes in second, the team that loses in the team that loses in the finals. So you lose in game 7.
As much games, right? Yeah.
You played as many games. You don't get the championship, and then you got to turn it right back around, and you got to play the season next year. You know, and I would say that would be one thing on here too. You have to extend rosters.
Yeah.
Like you can't just do a 53-man roster.
But geez, they have such huge rosters anyway, and they have the practice squads, and they have like as long as you have as many stars as you can, and you probably are going to have some stars missing, you know, through some of these games, whether it be, but you already do anyway. You know, we missed out on 2 or 3 games of Patrick Mahomes last year, you know, like that happens, you know, like regardless. So there is a level of it's just going to be a part of it. And with the depth of the talent in the NFL, like you figure they can pull it off, you know, where it's, you know, because all this whole like, oh, these college teams could beat these NFL teams and blah, blah, blah. No. And we all know that's stupid. Like there's the second stringers of the NFL teams would destroy 99% of all college teams, you know, like that's
easy. Yeah. Right. Alabama stands no chance against the Cincinnati Bengals.
Hell no. The worst NFL team. Right. Yeah. They will smoke them. Right. Yeah. So there's a level of monopoly of talent that they have too. They're not competing against any other leagues. They're not, you know, like they've got all the best players.
Well, I do know that I know personally I'm disappointed, you know, because I always get the home opener. You know, my brother's. I was talking to my brother about his
all this year of not going.
Well, like you were saying. So what the season ticket holders for the Chiefs did is they rolled everything to 2021.
Right.
So and then those people are in a lottery based on tenure to purchase single game tickets based on, and it rolls throughout the year.
Right. So once you get picked, you get put back in the bottom?
I mean, well, there's a possibility that week 1, they're going to let 15,000 people in the stadium. And then by week 8, you might be back up to capacity. Or you might be completely – or you might be down to 7,000. So it's going to be – you know, they're not going to be like, okay, yeah, you can buy, you know, week 12 tickets. They're going to – those tickets will be put on sale.
And that's something going back to schools that I'd like to see them do. They need to stop making so many like hard line dates late in the, you know, like wait it out, you know, I heard some districts are making people choose for all year already, you know, and I think that's silly. Our school years are set up in quarters and semesters, you know, for a reason, you know, so there's no reason here in the same scenario. You open up, you play the first games and let's say you have 15,000 fans in the stadium and everything goes great. It seems to be going okay. The stats are going okay when it comes to those communities. You go, okay, we'll give it a shot at 20, you know, and then, oh shit, here we go. It hits and then you go down to 5. I mean, I think that's a rational way of dealing with it, you know, but
and like, I didn't tell you this, but she dropped out of summer school. Remember how I told you the girls were both in summer school, Anna? Because she didn't go. She hasn't gone this week. She's out. So
she's just because she just doesn't want to, or
I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that, you know, the mask was bothering her or anything.
No.
Like
she just wasn't. She's already done.
She just wasn't. She was arguing with us to go. It's like, look, this just isn't worth the fight right now.
No,
like
it's
we're
not
not, we're just
necessary.
not going
If
to
it's not
fight with it,
necessary, right?
and like, it's just not worth, it's not
Totally.
worth it. And, and that does bring up this, as this interesting thing is, we're talking about what about these sports schedules and what about all of these things, but it goes back to the conversation I had with Elle when they first shut down schools. And I will say this is one of the things that is where health departments, CDC, World Health Organizations, they lose credibility because they come out and they say, hey, we're going to put a mask ordinance in. This is only going to be for 2 weeks. And rational, sane people know this is not a 2-week thing. This is going to be longer. And then they come out, oh, yeah, we're going to have to extend this. And what it feels like they're doing is that they're giving you their initial thing is, well, we're going to get a lot of backlash if we tell people, hey, look, we're going to put a mask ordinance in and it's going to last for 8 weeks. Next 2 months, you got to wear a mask everywhere you go in public. You got to do it.
Right.
Or, hey, you're going to have to do this until the end of the year.
But how they've slow rolled it, they've still gotten a lot of pushback, so it's a tough.
And I think it's because I do think a lot of it's because they've lost credibility on when some of the shutdowns came early, hey, we're in, and I've talked to people about like, listen, the thing is I just have to get you to take that first step. Once I get you out of your office and into your home, it's easier for me to extend it to you than to say, hey, we're shutting you down for 3 months.
Yeah.
If I tell you that I'm shutting you down for 2 weeks, you're like, okay, well, we'll have our people back in 2 weeks. And then I say, yeah, that 2 weeks, not going to happen. And so I think that's where you get a lot of the pushback. Now having said that, we're talking about sports here. Going back to my original point, when they first shut down school, they, for our district, I think they shut them down the week before spring break.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, we'll send you back we'll send you back after spring break.
Yeah.
Well, in our industry, we get the county orders. We see the full 14 to 28 page county order. I just remember telling Elle, I was like, do you really think that they're going to let you kids go back into your classrooms before they're going to let somebody go sit down and enjoy a steak dinner at Texas Roadhouse?
No,
because they're not letting people do that.
I was trying to tell teachers that. I was like, we're not coming back. You know that, right? Like that's when we went. We basically went our last day before spring break. We went on spring break and we never came back. And I was telling teachers that when we were leaving, what do you think? Oh, how long do you think we're going to be out? I'm like, we ain't coming back. I'm just telling you.
See you in 2021.
Here's the deal. Like I don't envision, unless something drastically changes, like we're not coming back anytime soon, and so that was where, and that's why I told you, I kept my kids home early than they were going to be because I knew it was coming down the road to be that, So again, when it comes to NFL, when it comes to anything, it is my suggestion to everybody in this scenario is to keep in mind that it's been 4 months and that we've got, as much as we miss regular school, as much as we miss, NFL, as much as we miss sports, all the things that we miss, going out, bars, restaurants, like socializing with our friends and all those things, we got to give it a little more time, and that's where I would say, if I was the NFL, you either going to have to adopt a policy and pay us a lot of money. Well, I shouldn't say us. This is you, that you could trickle down to me if you want to, Andy, on this plan.
50-50, man. We're 50-50 here.
Oh, God bless you.
It's not called AC and another C. It's not called
C's,
it's
right.
two
Okay.
C's.
God bless
we
you.
split it all right down the middle.
But to me, if they're being realistic, then they should be doing exactly what you've done. And if they haven't done that, then they either, I don't know.
It goes back to, with many of the corporations that I work with, you have a disaster recovery. There's a team that's in place. And generally they're not necessarily taken. I would be interested in the companies that I work for, how their disaster recovery plans have worked for them in this situation, because they didn't necessarily have a pandemic, But they did have something to where it would be like an earthquake hit, fire hit your corporate headquarters, but basically where your
If I'm the NFL, I hope I had somebody planning for a pandemic.
Yes.
I mean, these things are not like that. If the government had heard of them, if a lot of the general public had understood that they exist, like I hope the money in the NFL, they had somebody working on that, but maybe they didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a good question.
All organizations have a disaster recovery,
right, exactly.
risk management, that type of thing.
I would hope so.
They're supposed to have protocols and things like that in place. Do they really put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it? No, because it's a small percentage that this is going to happen. But when it happens,
it's the flotation device in your cushion on your airplane. It's really you never expect to use it. It's only there because to kind of make you feel better if it does happen, and if on the 99% chance that maybe it might keep you afloat at some point,
nobody's ever paying attention when those flight attendants are going over those things. But as soon as that plane, hey, we're going down, it's like, hey, you want to repeat what you said?
Yeah, hey, go over that shit again, please. Like I was listening, I really was, but
I was thinking about something else. I didn't have a pen.
Right.
Well, so I think that it's one of those things too, where we're talking about, an NFL schedule, but going back to like that advice that I talked to Elle,
right.
You're going to shut it down. We're going to take away your concerts, your sporting events, your offices, your restaurants, your funerals, your church services. We're going to keep taking it from this group down to this group. Well, it's not like we're just going to go, okay, everybody back open. And I think that, that's kind of what we've tried to do.
Right. And I if they can do it safely, and I just hope if they can do it safely. And here's my thing with professional athletes, part of me goes, let them, if they want to play, and they understand what they're getting into and they're going into it eyes wide open, the same way with concussion stuff in some ways too. I don't like how the NFL's handled that, but I also understand that a lot of NFL players know what they're getting into and they do it anyway. So I think it could be potentially okay. My concern is again, with children, with people who really aren't getting paid to be in these places, and, and our kids. And then, so that's where I go with these professional athletes. Like if they're signing on for it, let them go.
See, I just think that the money's too good.
Right. Oh, no, I know.
And there's too much for these guys to say, you know what?
If I'm a pro athlete right now, I would be wanting to play. I would be. I mean, I'm just, whether it's right or wrong, and I worry about our sporting guys that are playing right now. I don't want them to die. I don't want them to get sick. I don't want any of our Chiefs guys to get sick. I don't want anybody to, whether they're from Kansas City or not, but like on the flip side of it, as a professional and doing your job, and like it's millions of dollars, and that's how you, do your job. I mean, part of me goes, if you can make it safe for me, go for it.
Well,
as safe as possible.
And I think that's where things that's where it's that definition of what is safe.
Yeah.
That's where your definition comes in as to, okay, at what point do we say, hey, it's safe to go back? Do you say, well, honestly, these are non-at-risk people, and if they get it, they're going to be uncomfortable for a couple weeks, and then it is what it is? Or is it, hey, if they get it, we got to shut this thing down because of the
risk of that one of them gets really, really bad sick, and they're talking, and again, the piece is that we don't also know is the long-term effects, and that's something that is still,
it takes one Corey Stringer to change the way we look at water in practice.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we were in the generation there for a while. Our generation was
like that.
Water is for the weak.
100%. We didn't get water like that. I used to always, we never. And I noticed it when I was coaching. I wouldn't give the kids the water breaks. I would have to have them tell me, or someone would tell me, because it just wasn't in my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't what we did. We didn't take that many. It wasn't like a thing, like it's a thing now, you've got to have a certain amount in a certain time, which is good. I mean, it's not a bad thing. It's great, but again, it's Right. It's just a learning process from each. Sadly, something bad happens and you got to learn from it and go, but on the flip side, I was thinking to my brain, like, like they still are probably more at risk for the concussion shit than they are from COVID from playing football anyway.
I mean, there's a lot more. It's kind of like, I don't know if I saw this meme of this overweight person with like cheeseburgers in front of them and, all this.
But they got a mask.
They got a mask and they're like, I wear a mask because I'm worried about my health. And it's like, so, I mean, it's kind of a big picture thing. But,
yes.
Well, speaking of water breaks, I need to do what the water makes you do.
Yeah. Okay.
So
let me talk about fountains and
exactly. Well, we've been going for quite a while. So I think our sponsors got their money's worth.
Surely. Yes. And we earned our money today.
Yeah. Good friend of the show, Matt May, would like for you to come off some of those Blue Chew pills for him. I don't know what he meant by that.
I'll do that. Yeah. No, I get them free. So I'm not, I don't need them. So I would gladly.
They come to your house because your house is the official headquarters.
Exactly. And then I just distribute them legally around to people who might need them. Yes.
Yeah. Which does not include either of us.
No.
We're just helping people out.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Next week, man, if all goes well, the Olympics in Tokyo are scheduled to start next week. So I think so I think we'll just
chat about that. That'd be amazing.
We might actually get to that USA Angola match, that basketball game that we've been threatening. Since we're going to be deprived of Olympics.
Yeah. Exactly. So we'll do an Olympic event.
We're going to do an Olympic event. We might, who knows? It's, Olympic events are really hard to watch because like you have to watch the Olympics, but they have to bounce around all the different events. Cause it's not like, what are we going to do a podcast on Usain Bolt breaking the 100-meter record?
Yeah. And quickest podcast ever. And
there
it's
you
over.
Go. There you go. Enjoy that.
Look at him go.
He was fast. That was really fast. Damned. All right, here's Michael Phelps swimming. Yep.
Yeah.
Got another gold medal.
Yeah, pretty fast. Look at him. I'll be damned. Look at that guy.
All right, buddy. I will catch up with you next week, man.
All right.
All right. Keep up your great work over there at the WOOC Plus.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's very exciting.
You guys are killing it.
Oh, thank you.
Over there. So keep it up.
Appreciate you.
I'll talk to you next week, man.
All right, brother.
All right, bye. Be good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.